Hello, welcome back to BSLIVE. In this episode, I wanted to show you some kind of workflow. It's still kind of work in progress, but basically, you look at the thing over there. That's the 3D cursor. I want to give this tool a little bit more love. Basically, we know the fact that 3D cursor can go across the surface, and then if I actually do this, which is updating what I'm doing over here, it's basically a torus doing performing a boolean on this box. Occasionally there's a glitch, especially with a torus. I think that's probably, it could be a bug. It's kind of like super overlapping torus. So this is a SVeetCutter nodes setup that's basically reading the 3D cursor. It's reading the positions and also the orientations. So knowing the position and orientations of the 3D cursor, just like here. So 3D cursor, there's locations and rotations, which is based on the surface of this box. I could simply place a torus, and the torus itself is really still controllable from here. So I can change the resolutions, etc., and then I could actually spin. I don't need to spin it, but we can revolve, and it's still updating in real time over here, which is kind of nice. But I'm also kind of want to incorporate something called BoolTool. So there's also this add-on that comes with Blender 2.80, Boolean tool. So you perform this trick using Control Shift B. So that's gonna perform the Boolean. So I wrote this as well, Control Shift B. So I'm gonna give you this file later. But for now, let's try have a look at the nodes a little bit. So it's reading the scene, our scenes, and then it finds the 3D cursor from our scenes context, and then it's gonna look at the locations and rotations. It's gonna query that position, and this position is really something that you can also customize, whether you want it to be on the geometry or transform view, etc. Okay, so if I actually have if I create another cube, so I place the 3D cursor over there, and then I create a cube. And let's make this a little bit more interesting. Like, let's go to edge mode, and then we want to bevel this. I think bevel is Command B. Okay, we bevel it, so we have that horizontal, it's diagonal kind of surface. And we go back to object mode. I like to work with object modes because I also use a lot of modifier boolean and things like that. I like working in edit mode as well, depends. But you can see now with this 3D cursor set to geometry, it's actually respecting the normal of the surface, right? That's really important. So if we want to place a torus over there, I can just update it. So actually there's a torus that's jumping over there. This is our torus. So based on all this, something that's kind of slightly complex, but it's not really. It's like the rotation of the 3D cursor is converted into degrees, and then I'm assigning it to matrix Euler, multiply the matrix, and then etc. But anyway, this is 3D cursors coming in as the transform matrix for this torus. And then after I do that, while holding Shift and holding the torus, selecting the torus, I can select this guy and then Control Shift B for the Boolean. So this is the BoolTool Boolean. We can use this Boolean. This is like I think more destructive, and this one is non-destructive. So it will generate a modifier. So let's do a brush difference. There you go. See what just happened? our torus is cutting into the box, and this guy is alpha 0, 0, 0. This is similar to BoxCutter, the way it works, and also similar to what's PT Wazo is doing with Blender modifier. Very similar. But this is interesting, right? Because yeah, let's say we like this. The idea is really, ideally, this guy can be more static. Like, so I duplicate this guy, and so we have alpha 002, and this guy should be alpha 002. So so I can continue working. Go back to 3D cursor, create where I'm gonna place the objects, and then update. So maybe something like that. And then I perform the BoolTool once again. Shift click. I need to select the cutter first. Shift click, and then Control Shift B. Brush difference once again. So we have these objects, and this again, once again, that's the alpha 0, 0, 0 that's being updated by SVeetCutter at all the time. And I just simply duplicate this, hit escape, go back to this guy, and then replace this guy with alpha 003. So we still have this torus. It doesn't need to be a torus, but this guy, this alpha.000 is the cutter. So we can try using, for example, like a box. So another box on top of this. Box is not particularly interesting, but still I can show it to you. Oh, okay. What's funny there is I place this object, and then it's kind of on top of this same object, and then so it's placing it on top of itself, so that's why it's hitting that. So we have this box anyway. So this guy, once again, I'm gonna perform the cutter, Control Shift B, there you go, and this is still adjustable. What could be interesting is that perhaps we can use another matrix multiplier over here, and maybe this is post. We can adjust the positions. Maybe I can even rotate this. Okay, the rotate is not exactly on the right pivot that I wanted, but you get the idea. This can be, I think it should be pre. Oh yeah, pre is actually good. So a lot of things in nodes that I still don't quite understand, especially with the matrix stuff, but with a bit of trial and error, usually I get where I want it. So yeah, I can adjust the position, I can rotate, so that's kind of cool. Okay, I'm gonna keep this. I'm definitely gonna need this. So let's continue. So if I actually start with a fresh blend, so I save this tool as BoolTool mode 003. So I'll create a new file, delete everything, file, save as BoolTool node. I'm just gonna call it like that. We deleted a cube. I'm gonna recreate the cube, and then just scale it, and then again go to edit mode, Command B, and then bevel, just to prove my point. File, append, go to the desktop. So this is the BoolTool modifier. I'm gonna grab the node. So we should now have it over here under SVeetCutter nodes. Okay, so we still have our torus box. Let's do something different. So, but first of all, don't forget we need a cursor. So we have a 3D cursor over here. So we can see our object snapping into that guy, but we want it to be snapping into the geometry surface, so don't forget about that. And of course we still have all this control, so we can move it locally, so that's nice. Let's try a pipe. Oh, actually not a pipe, it's a ring. So I like to have ring on top of this, because ring is actually really powerful. Like that's the ring, and you can do like solidify things like that, just to make it so that we can cut into this guy. We can Boolean it, okay? So you can put just solidify, but solidify, if you just put a solidify, it's not centered. So solidify, of course, add thickness, and you can go minus to do the cutting. So that's cutting inside. So that could be all right, actually. But if you want to be centered, you can use vector drop, assign a matrix 0, 0, 0 over here, and then update it. So now the thickness is centered. If I'm doing this correctly, okay, well, somehow it's still not centered, but we still have to solidify. Okay, don't forget about this vector drop for now. Just the ring. So the ring, and then we have a way to cut through this. So select this. So this guy itself, the cutter, should be wired. So this should be set to wire. I need to actually make this automatic, and it should also be hidden. But before we hide it, we want to select this guy, Control Shift, and this guy, and then Control Shift B. This is the BoolTool once again, and it's gonna cut through the objects. So we can still update it. So it's good. It's an interactive tool. It can be improved to the level like BoxCutter. What I like about BoxCutter is, of course, that this guy has very interesting interface as it is. So hard to explain. But when you're working with BoxCutter, you just go in and then you just that kind of way of working, just being able to draw and then place it. It's really nice. And that's what I'm trying to replicate over here with 3D cursor. I like 3D cursor a lot. I think many new Blender user will almost never touch that unless they know what they're doing. They will probably use selection and then all these tool that many don't like this shortcut, the grab, rotate, and scale, which is GRS. In other 3D package under Autodesk, normally it's WER. But normally a long-time Blender user don't care too much about that. So that's a cutter. So that's a single cut. That's good. That's good. So we can. So again, this is also something that should be automated. It's now I'm kind of duplicating it and then go into this object under modifier, and then I want to, okay, this is the one that's created using BoxCutter, and this is the one that we have, alpha 000. It needs to be alpha 0.001. But when I do that, I'm no longer be able to change or interact with it. So a better idea is actually to duplicate the whole setup here. So let's say we still want that control. We don't need to duplicate it. So we still have this. So it's still alive. So that's good. So I want to continue working. Let's actually, how do we apply this? Something like that will work. So we still, now we're kind of applying it. So it doesn't, okay, it's still updating. A better way is actually to leave an empty there to replace our 3D cursor while keeping the whole thing. So yeah, I need to think about it, but basically I want, because I like this placement of these objects, so I want to put an empty there as a replacement, as a placement for our objects, and then I can continue working with this guy over here. So empty. So let's see if I can create an empty in SVeetCutter. Oh well, I think for now the easiest way is actually to duplicate and then replace it, but I don't like that the idea because we are kind of baking the mesh. I want to keep the mesh, so we need to have grab the placement of these objects, replace it with empty, and then continue working using the 3D cursor position and rotation over here. Oh well, but that's an idea. Hopefully you kind of dig what I'm trying to do here. It could be an add-on. This thing could be, actually this is something that BoxCutter is already doing, but BoxCutter object is not a live object. It's not like a nodes. So that's kind of limiting. Even though you can still work with this object over here and then adding like things like maybe like bevel. So I can bevel an object that's actually a cutter, and this actually still work. But the BoxCutter itself actually have a way to deal with that. So if I'm not wrong, there's a, okay, not extract, but you can go in, add a cutter, and before you finish you go to edit mode, and then you look at this crazy thing. You can bevel, and this is actually super powerful. If I'm not wrong, it's still that thing that's I just created, that cutter actually have its own bevel. So this is pretty crazy. So BoxCutter itself tries to make a live bevel on the object. So this cutter is actually live, and you can move it. You can even make changes, and it's gonna update. So that's also in itself pretty powerful. But I really want BoxCutter to work with nodes like SVeetCutter, because it's an opportunity to make modeling in Blender more non-destructive in a way, like what Pitiwazo is trying to do, and also what I'm demonstrating here. Not many people will get SVeetCutter at first, but because it has so many nodes now, like hundreds of nodes, it's really powerful in a way for modeling. So yeah, that's why I'm showing you this. So hopefully this can be useful for you. This 3D cursor, remember you need to switch to 3D cursor and then place it on the surface of the objects, and then do the Boolean cutter using the Bool tool. That's what I'm proposing here. So yeah, I need to think about it a little bit more and try to convert this into empty, so I can put that in empty, so I can duplicate the whole thing and then continue with another cut. So it's more procedural kind of way. I call it SVeetCutter, like a way to intercept modifier with nodes. again, yeah, thanks again for tuning in. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Bye.